everybody, and welcome to my Oshi no Ko chapter 114 review. This chapter is titled Interpersonal Audition. So last time in Oshi no Ko, we had a big chapter focusing on Frill Shirani and Ruby, where the two of them were talking about this new role that was being offered for the 15-year lie, and with that, Ruby and Frill were both getting offered the role, and Frill had the grand idea that them two, along with Akane, should do a three-way interpersonal audition to see who actually gets to decide for themselves who will get the role. And that is what this chapter this week's about. It's of course titled Interpersonal Audition, which is the interpersonal audition between the three of them. And we start off with a really interesting color page, actually, where we see Frill, Ruby, and Akane all together, all sort of with their heads hanging to the middle of all of their hair colors, sort of just swirling around. It's a really interesting color page, to be honest. Still my favorite detail is just how Ruby's eyes is that sort of red, and just on the inside is that black star, showing that she is sort of in the dark mode, I guess you'd say, right? But this chapter starts out normally with Ruby just walking around town, going to where Frill and her and Akane are going to hold this interpersonal audition, and she's just walking around, and there's a bunch of advertisements with Frill on them just around the train station, one of them Akane too, and as she's just looking around, she eventually gets to her destination, and Frill's already there, and Akane's just like, wow, you can really rent a place like this, huh? And Frill's like, yeah, underground idols and theatrical companies that don't have money often use it for rehearsals. She's like, this is a kind of public hall, so it's so cheap it doesn't even make sense. And the thing is, Ruby's like, oh, well, how much is it then? And Frill's just like 200 yen, which translates to about $2 in USD, which is really crazy. And Ruby's just like, what, really? This is insane. And Frill's just like, yeah, 200 yen for 2 hours. So you're pretty much renting this hall for $1 an hour, that is crazy. And she's just like, it is so cheap, it just doesn't make any sense. You get what I'm saying? As we sort of get like a small comic panel of Frill sort of saying this, right? And she continues on to say, but well, it's the administrative public building where they use a large amount of taxpayers' hard-earned money, so I'll just be thankful and use it. As Ruby's like, oh yeah, she's a very highly taxed person since she has a massive income, so I guess she's just very silently angry about this, right? As the two of them are talking, we see that Akane walks in, and she's just like, hey, thanks for waiting, as we get a panel of Akane here, and Ruby's just like, oh, who is it? And she's like, oh, it's Akane-chan, right? So you pretty much cut to some sort of narration, I think it's done by Ruby, as it's like starting with a romance reality show that stole everyone's attention. She's appeared in many highly discussed works as an actress with high hopes. She's also received a new actress award at the Japanese Film Festival, which I don't think that we knew that, which is sort of interesting that Akane is that good of an actor that she's even received an award like that, right? And we see a news article where this continues, and like, even recently she began to talk of her town with her breakup announcement with Aqua Hoshino, which is just really funny the more you think about it, how that all ended with Aqua just being the terrible person that he is, and his grudge that being used on Akane, right? And we see that Ruby comes over and is like, hey, long time no see, and Akane's like, yeah, and Ruby's just like, oh my gosh, this is so incredibly awkward, as she's like, at the very least, I refer to her as an older sister once, I have to handle this well, this is weird, right? And Akane's just like, well, how is Aqua-kun doing, is he okay? And Ruby's just like, yeah, and she's like, oh my gosh, which is even funnier that Akane's asking about Aqua after what he did to her with the whole listening device and just all of that. It was terrifying, and just this, it's a big sort of comedy moment again, right? But we see that Akane's here, she's just like, hey, Frill Shirani, what is the meaning of this? Are you hiding something? And Frill's just like, hiding? And she's like, we're being nominated for the lead role in director Gantana's new movie, right? You'll get an offer for the lead actress without having to do any of this anyway, and yet you're doing something that's so disruptive like this. There must be more to it than meets the eye. as Frill's just like, there's none, as Akane calls her a liar, and as we know, everything in showbiz is a liar. I mean, that's the first page of the first volume there, or first page of the first chapter is about that. As Akane's just like, yeah, you're lying about that, and Frill is silent for a moment before she starts to go, you're a very mistrustful person, aren't you? And yes, I mean, look what happened to her in Aqua. Very mistrustful, right? But Akane just stays silent, and she's just like, yeah, well, or she doesn't say that, but she just stares at Frill, and Frill's just like, yeah, well, there's a reason behind this, kinda. And Ruby's just like, what kind of reason? If we're just like, it's a secret. But what made me want to do this interpersonal audition was mostly because I want to feel good playing this role. I was the right first person for this role, after all. I want to do this job with that in mind, of that being the right person for this role when somebody may be doing it better. And Akane is just like, I'm not interested. This is my first day off in a long time. If that's just the reason, I'm going home. As Frill goes and says, well, you know that Aqua-san is co-starring in the movie, right? And Akane stops in her tracks, gives the nasty side-eye back, and she just turns around and she's like, you said audition, right? Who are the judges? And that is very terrible, to be honest, because we can obviously see that Ruby still wants, or not Ruby, but Akane really wants to have more to do with Aqua. And even though Akane is my favorite character in the series, and I really do want to see more of her, it's just not really a healthy thing. Granted, I'm not really one to talk about relationships in this sort of way, but just it's very unhealthy what Akane is doing here, and Frill's not really helping either, right? But Frill continues on saying, oh, I told you, didn't I? This is an interpersonal audition, so we will be the judges. And Akane's just like, oh, well, alright, well, based on what? As we see that Frill's just like, we're not doing anything that threatens our lives over here, and all of a sudden, the first thing that Ruby thinks of is just like tightrope walking and just doing very life-threatening things, right? But Frill's just like, well, we just need to play the role. And Akane's like, well, they haven't given me a script, so I don't know anything about this role. And Ruby's like, yeah, same here. And we see that Frill's got it with her, and she's just like, oh, I see, but I can't possibly show the script to two people who haven't received the offer yet either. And she's like, I'll come up with it then, and we'll do some improvisation based on that theme. What do you think? And we're both like, yeah, that will work, I guess. And Frill starts to say at this point, she's like, okay, then let's do this. The theme will be a liar, being that the movie's literally called The 15-Year Lie. So she's just like, theme will be liar. And Frill's just like, I'll go first. Think about how you want to act yours, right? And so Frill sort of just stands up. She's like, all right, number one, Frill Shirani, I'll tell a lie. As we see that she sort of does this sort of, I don't really know guys. This is a very awkward thing where she's just acting based off of nothing else. As she sort of just gets up and she's sort of just like, oh no, a wolf is coming. There's a very interesting panel here. And she walks around and she's like, oh, here comes the wolf is here. As she looks back at our main cast there sitting down, and she's just like, no one believes me these days. I want everyone to care about me. I feel so lonely. What should I do? As we see it, she sort of starts to cry. Akane and Ruby are watching, and we see that Frill's doing her acting some more. She's like, that's it. If I tell the truth, everybody will care about me. The wolf is not coming. And at that point, she sort of just gives some narration saying, then a group of men with hunting rifles gathered from all over the village, and the boy who cried a wolf was scolded again. And we see the Ruby's like, was that an anecdote? And we see the Frill's is like, my commencement side just kicked in out of the blue. You don't actually have to use those lines, just do whatever you want. She's just like, anyway, I think I'm a little so-so, but I can definitely act, even though I'm not as good as Kurokawa is. Still, I have some kind of charm to me I can show, so I want to take that into consideration as well. As Akane's just like, being good at acting doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good actor, but there's something showy about this person that just makes you want to watch her. As she's just like, that's a big weapon for an actor. And Frill's just like, right, next is your turn, Ruby. What are lies to you? And that is where we end off the chapter. So, the ending there is massive. What are lies to you? Of course we know that, of course Ruby is Saria from the original timeline in a way, and then she got reincarnated as Ruby. So, and the whole thing over what are lies to you, I mean, that's the whole thing based on her mother and Aqua's mother, and just the whole stuff based in the series is lying and how it can improve the show business. So really, this is very interesting all around. So I do like the beginning of the chapter, and there's that little joke of, oh, 200 yen for 2 hours, and a small taxpayer joke. I found that sort of comical. Akane comes, and Akane's whole thing with wanting to be around Aqua some more. I don't know if she's just trying to find out about Aqua and all that, or if she wants to help him some more. But I can't help remembering about chapter 50-ish, where there's the whole thing of Akane was like, yeah, I'll help you kill the guy if we need to. So I don't know if she's still thinking about that, and Aqua sort of just shoved her away. Of course, you know that Aqua is more of in love with Kana, if anything, so it's just a very interesting thing that's going on here. And then the whole thing of Frill just acting there for like 2 pages is just really, really awkward. I definitely think that'll be done a bit better in the anime, but it's just very awkward to just sort of read that all of a sudden and have to go into a mindset of, oh, it's not dialogue, it's her trying to act, and it's just very awkward all around. And altogether, this was a pretty good chapter. I did like just focusing on our 3 characters here and not bringing in a whole bunch, right? It's just Frill, it's Ruby, and Akane, and mentions of Aqua, and I think 1 mention of Director Gotonda. So altogether, I give it a very good chapter, and next time we get to see what lies are to Ruby. So that's going to be exciting. I'm ready for it, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was Oshi no Ko, chapter 114, titled Interpersonal Audition, and yeah, this is going to be Glowplasma231 out.